Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three disgruntled harpies talk to you about everything we love in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the episode. Today we are discussing the movie The Decoy Bride. But before we get into that, I gotta warn you, I gotta let the people know that we are crass and unhinged. We're very unladylike. We like to swear and we like to talk about all of the naughty times, though there were none in this movie.
Well, you know, not everyone has to be throwing it back, you know?
I get it. Wholesome and shit. Wiggles, do you want to tell us something about this movie?
No.
Okay, Danny, what's this movie about?
This movie is about a very famous woman, actress, that is marrying a sort of famous author, played by David Tennant. He's my sweet angel baby, and I love him. I will hear no David Tennant slander.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
But because she's so famous, it's causing a lot of issues with getting their wedding going and everything because paparazzi suck. And so they decide that they're going to run away to a small island in Scotland called the Hague.
The Isle of Hague.
The island of Hague, sorry. Not the Hague.
Mm-hmm.
The island of Hague. Two different things there. Which is where he based his book on. But apparently he had never actually been there. And knew nothing actually about it. He Googled the entire book. And that's where they're going to do their wedding. And they use a local girl as a decoy bride when they realize that there is a paparazzi on the island. And the famous girl is the one who realizes it first and just disappears. And so they were like, okay, we're gonna decoy, make her the decoy. And then they find out that they actually got married. Oopsies. Discuss.
You know, that entirely realistic thing where you can accidentally get married.
Yeah, you have to turn that shit in.
I know. I was like, this is a little far-fetched here, guys.
I mean, I guess it's different countries.
That is true.
That is true. I don't know the
laws.
rules.
Yeah. That's the benefit of the doubt that I'm going to give them. Also, here's the thing. Even just in our home state, there are still weird laws on the books that are typically forgotten and ignored, but could be enforced if someone felt spicy enough.
Yeah.
True. Absolutely true. So you don't know. Also, it could be just because there's something like 94 people in this town or something like that. They say it at one point and I don't remember what it is. So maybe it did get turned into the government official whatever.
Well, they do have a laird, so I would assume that he has veto power. And so I feel like there were more ways out of it than the way they went about it. But I get it.
Yeah. Movie
magic
Logic.
plot.
Movie magic.
Yeah. It's cute. Whatever. Just enjoy it.
It is cute. It is a cute movie. I enjoyed it. I'm not a big rom-com person generally, and this could be just my love of David Tennant. I love him immensely. I also love her.
I mean, I picked it purely because I know you love David Tennant.
I know.
It was just for you.
But the actress who played, and I can't remember the character's name now.
Katie.
The actress who plays Katie, I actually really like her too. She's been in 1.5 million things that I've seen and is one of those people that I don't remember until I see her and I'm like, oh, fuck it, I love her. Mm-hmm. She was in Nanny McPhee. She's in Harry Potter. She is the voice of Merida in Brave.
She is.
Which is my favorite Disney princess.
Mm.
I was a little confused by the cover of this movie because the movie cover gives me farcical. Mm-hmm. And I guess while there are farcical situations, the movie itself never gave me the ha-has.
You didn't laugh ever?
I don't think so.
Do you not like fun?
That's because I had quite a few ha-has in the movie.
I guess I find a lot of it funny. Maybe it is a relatability factor. The amount of whoops-a-daisies, awkward moments, and just how did you get yourself into this mess that I found relatable was high.
Yeah.
So I was just God, I could see myself being mistaken for somebody who lives in a toilet.
God, that fucking toilet. It just kept coming back to us.
Oh, God.
I know where they're getting married. They're getting married in the haunted toilet. It's an old island tradition.
Right?
I was so confused by the haunted toilet. I was like, it's just like a big house of toilets.
I think it was originally a like communal bathhouse before there was like plumbing and everything, but
Sure. Yeah, like I get it. But I was just like, why is this such a big deal?
and why do people keep going there?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else there.
It's true.
That's true. Hague is the smallest of small towns. It's not a town, it's an isle, but still.
Mm.
It's a tiny, tiny island. Gorgeous, though.
On the Hebrides.
Hebrides.
And so I think, too, it's just like one of the problems that people keep running into that has led them to these toilets over and over again is they're basing their understanding of the geography of this entire isle exclusively on his horrible book, The Ornithologist's Wife.
Yeah.
And they're like, this doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, yeah, because he Googled it all. He doesn't know where anything is.
Yeah, because it was that specific building that he'd called something else that was like romantic. I can't remember what he had said it was supposed to be other than a haunted toilet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Haunted by a cow.
Yes.
Yes.
Specifically a cow.
Like, this isn't, a
I like to
cow.
imagine that the way the cow died in there is that it wandered in and they couldn't figure out how to get it back out. And so that's why it's haunted by this cow. But who's to say?
I mean, it's whether or not it's actually haunted, we don't know, but
Obviously is, Liz.
it feels haunted. I get it. All right.
I do love that is how they met, is in the haunted toilet. Because she stepped in to get away from the rain.
Mm-hmm.
And he was out wandering. And he also stepped in to get away from the rain. And he has a similar hat to somebody she knows on the island. And so she thought it'd be funny to make a haunted cow noise in the toilet.
Yes.
And then realized it wasn't the person she thought it was.
Yeah, that definitely seems like something, Wiggs, that you would
It really does.
There's a particular line towards the end of their interaction where she's like been bashing his book unbeknownst to her because he calls himself John Johnson, which is a great second name. Well done.
Very creative.
Yes.
I'm so glad you're an author.
So smart. And she goes, I'm a lot hotter than I look. I was like, God damn it. That is something I for sure would be like, listen, I know I look like shit today, but when you come back on Tuesday, I'll look better. I swear.
I think that was one of my favorite lines. Like oh no, you didn't actually say that, did you?
Hotter than
no.
I look. God, that's rough. I think even later on, she's like saying it back to herself. She's just like, oh my God, I want to die. And I'm like, you probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of her moments for me are, I'm like, oh, don't call me out that hard. I embarrass myself a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You see, that's why I just don't talk to other people. It avoids all of this.
I mostly don't talk to
And
other
it gives
people.
you an air of mystery.
Yeah. People
know?
consider me aloof, standoffish, perhaps a bit unpleasant. No one's good. Stay away.
I mean, here's the thing. I have to talk to people a lot more than I would like to because customer service.
Yeah.
There are times where my filter dies. It's usually funny. Somebody came on the phone one day and went, oh no, I sound very different when I'm on the phone. Customer service voice
of
is a real
course.
thing and I hate that bitch and she's weird. I have nightmares about her.
You know, one thing I like about this movie overall is that all the characters are very human. Like the only person who's quote unquote superhuman really is the girlfriend, the fiance, the meant to be wife.
Who is a lot nicer than you expect her to be, honestly.
Lana Tyler.
Yeah,
Lana Tyler. Lana Tyler. We're going to go with that.
Lara Tyler.
Lara. I was so close. It was one of them.
Well, I think that's a little bit confusing because she's American. So is she Laura and then they just have British accents?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. So, but like, even she's like, I think the whole point of her character is to be like, no, listen, I'm actually a fucking human being.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she makes a pretty big flub, which is to like, in my mind, her thing is she's falling so much in love with James, so much so that they are going to get married. But it seems like she doesn't know James at all, whether that's a fault of hers for like having like a starry-eyed, dreamy perspective of the world, or, you know, it seems like it's also equally his, where he's kind of saying, it's Laura Tyler. If she likes you, you go with it.
I think it's kind of a combination of both. It's she fell in love with his book and he is not his book. And the book is actually kind of terrible by all accounts, but she fucking loves it and everybody has the right to love what they want. Mm-hmm. So he, I think, then kind of changes who he is throughout the course of their relationship to give her what she wants. But she also is a genuinely nice person. And I really appreciate in this movie that they don't turn her into like the psycho bitch.
Right.
She is a genuinely nice person who is just trying to have a peaceful wedding day. She just doesn't want to be surrounded by photographers and shit when she's getting married.
Right.
I should say people who aren't supposed to be taking pictures of her. Well, obviously, they'd have a wedding photographer. But like the guy hid in the fucking Oregon and he was peeing in bottles.
Which meant he'd been there a while.
Yeah. Like that's so, I completely understand why she's like, let's just run away somewhere obscure.
I wish we would have gotten more of Laura and James's relationship. Mm-hmm. For as much buildup there is to James and Katie finally like just even meeting, I wish there would have been maybe less of the assistants and stuff that are around Laura and trying to make this wedding happen, because I'm sure they were there to add humor, but I found them just to be like taking away from some of the main plot points, and then would have been able to see more of Laura and James, because I think if by the time James and Katie meet and are starting to have their like romantic flirty business, I would have felt really confident that James and Laura shouldn't have been together. I would have maybe accepted the romance in this movie more, but it just felt like I was like, oh no, you're supposed to be getting married, why are you flirting with some other chick? That was the vibe I got through most of the movie.
But I think you were supposed to not know, right? You were supposed to be in a place of, I really like, you guys are really cute together and I kind of want to root for this, but like, you are getting married to this other woman, like
who is nice,
who seems to be very nice and just wants peace and quiet and privacy,
and
right?
by all accounts is a very talented person as well. God, that makeup she did, I know she didn't actually do it, but like,
well, the character did.
But the character did like old age makeup out of just random stuff that she found to hide herself because she's on a small island and an army of fucking press showed up.
Right.
Because Katie's mother called them.
Well, and that's the thing, is there are a whole bunch of auxiliary characters, but I think what they add to the story is making the story grounded and giving the very loose terms by which we're able to force Katie and James to be together, the little bit of tethering to reality that they could have. And I really like the assistants, even though I feel like they kind of took up more time than they should.
Yeah.
But it does speak to the level of privilege that Laura does have, because just the fact that they would send out her hair and makeup team to go look for her, and that to me was really funny. It's just expected. It's Lara Tyler. You're gonna go do it.
I really liked, though, of the auxiliary people, I liked the other like islanders. They were great.
I loved her like boss at because she kind of works at like a general store. She's just come back.
Yeah, the backstory we get there is she went off and tried to make a life and then came back to the island.
She was writing for a like men's magazine, essentially.
Yeah.
Catalog. Not a men's magazine, a men's catalog. And then she also broke up with her boyfriend or got dumped.
The timeline, that's a little confusing because she comes back for his wedding, right?
No, so those are two different people.
Yeah.
See,
so she was dating a
musician.
And they got engaged, and the musician did not like getting critical feedback, and so he broke up with her and gave her the line, "You are just one song, not a whole album."
Yeah, see, that's where I think a lot of confusion happened, is I did not catch that, because the way the the beginning of the movie starts is she's coming back. She takes her ring off, throws it into the water, and then she shows up at a wedding where everybody's like, "Oh, you could have had him." I'm like, those are two different scenarios. Didn't catch that.
Well, her mom invites her to the wedding. Like, she wasn't even invited. She's just got back, and her mom's like, "Do you want to go to a wedding?"
Yep.
Okay.
And it's essentially, I think, probably her like ex-boyfriend from.
I don't know that they ever even dated. The
I'm
way
not
that
sure
Angus
either.
talks about it is that's a single way love track. Like he's been imagining this whole thing in his head, because he says, "I just never thought that I had a chance with you." And that's why he went after Muriel. And I'm just like, if I was Muriel, I'd be like, "Fuck you, my
Right?
guy. We are so done."
Well, he says that days after his wedding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a day.
Yeah.
A day. Like, fuck, man. Oh my God. I don't know how she stuck it out with him. I would have been like, "No, thank you. No."
Poor sweet Angus.
I
I don't know if he's poor or sweet.
don't. We do see growth from him, though, at the end of the movie.
Yep.
Yes.
So there's that. Maybe he's capable of growth and change, and she sees that in him. And
They
is
really
like,
don't make anyone in particular to be like the true villain of this movie, because even the like really obnoxious paparazzi guy, you end up kind of, oh,
Do you? Because I thought that was creepy as fuck, and Laura should have had a fucking restraining order on him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So the thing here is the one paparazzi that always finds her, the one paparazzi that always finds Laura is the first guy on this island. And there's like supposed to be, I think, a romantic moment where he's talking to Laura as she's dressed as old lady and, you know, lamenting the fact that Laura is married and he's become like obsessed with her. And he's showing these pictures to her, and Laura as old lady is like, "You never published these." He said, "No, I was waiting I was at this place that she was, and I was living up in the rafters, and it's pictures of her in a bikini." I'm sorry, that is stalker level shit.
It really is.
It is. It is.
The only reason it gets a pass is because he's paparazzi, and that's like part of the job, but it's not. That was too much.
I mean, I don't disagree
I
with
don't disagree. I will say he does change to wildlife photography at the end.
Is that what that ending epilogue was supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
See,
It's-
there's just a
it's
lot
his-
in this movie I apparently didn't catch.
Yeah, it's his like gallery show of his
Yes.
wildlife
Yes.
photography, and it looked like all pictures he took on Hague of like the puffins and the hedgehogs. And
I swear, I sat down and watched this movie, and you guys are telling me things that I did not catch at all.
I am genuinely wondering, did you watch this movie?
100% I did. Without a doubt. I sat down and watched this movie.
I didn't think that any of these things were unclear.
I don't. They weren't.
So, admittedly, I've seen this movie a handful of times, and so I'm not the best judge of like what's clear on the first pass at this point. But I'm confused at your confusion.
I'll be honest with you, and this will come later when we do our ratings. I think I was just really bored, and that's why I missed a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you were bored, but I think that maybe what's playing a factor is it is a tamer story, and it is a calmer story. It's not like flashy in your face. It honestly is. It's one of those movies that's on the tail end of like when traditional rom-coms were dying off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're out of practice. If it's not like a rom-com you already know and you love, like watching one now, you're sort of like, what was that?
Yeah, I get that. And I'm, like I said, I'm not a big rom-com person anyway, but I did really like this one. It is actually the second time I've watched it, and I didn't realize it until I started watching it this time.
That happens to you a lot, doesn't it, Danny?
Shut up. I have consumed a lot of media.
Listen, same.
The thing is though, is I can watch like TV that's a lot slower. And I'm sure it's just because it's chunked into episodes. So I'm only like dealing with it for 45 minutes, an hour or whatever. But if movies are slower, I'm just like, ugh, why am I here?
Well, and you're just not a big movie person anyway.
No, I'm not. So don't listen to me, I guess. Listen to these two.
Well, I mean, I think let's take them character by character, right?
Okay.
So we have Katie, and her whole thing is that she's grown up on this island where everybody is married off, and to the point where they at weddings have a ceremony where if you are single, you have to dance with all of the eligible women in the entire island. And so there's that. But also her mother, who's a great character, and honestly I think might be my favorite of the entire movie. She and her father break up for whatever reason. We don't really get to know the details of that, and he leaves and
to go play bagpipes.
He's Lord of the Bagpipes. So there's that. And so like she's got horrible influences on what she should be looking for in a guy. And then her one friend on the island, who is one of the only other single people on the island and clearly would like to be with Katie, he just to rub the salt in the wound goes, "You have bad taste in men." So she's doing so well, guys.
Isn't he the laird?
He is.
Yeah. He's also quite a bit older than her.
Yes.
Yep. That doesn't seem to make any difference because at the wedding that she sort of almost messes up, a kid asks her how old she'll be in 8 years because he'll marry her. So yeah, it's a different vibe. And as much as I think her mom and Katie love the people of the island, they've always wanted to be probably anywhere else.
Also, the vibe that I kind of got from the laird, and I don't remember his name at the moment, is less like, oh, I'm chasing after Katie, and more like she's the one single person and I get along with her.
Pretty much. He's never being creepy.
No, I honestly, it gives me more of the vibe of if this was a period piece, he would marry her out of protection and kindness and friendship. You know what I mean? But
yeah, like you've become the age of a spinster, and I guess to make sure you're gonna be okay with now that your mom is sick and your dad is gone, I'll marry you.
Yes. I never got the vibe that he was being a creep either. But then we have James, who is a writer, and supposedly he's famous, but like he's only written one book and it didn't do very well.
He's really only famous because he is marrying Laura.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
And Laura is in love with the book. Like to the point where she is having an ornithologist wife themed wedding.
And she quotes passages of the book back to James that he doesn't even remember.
Right. Because this is a big honker, like at least 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that the whole island of Hague hates it. Like to the point where one guy is using it as toilet paper.
I love the ongoing joke of the Hague book club,
which
gave it 4 out of 10 stars, I believe.
Yes.
That was a funny bit that came back again at the end.
Yes.
Hey, they're tough.
I like that they thought it picked up around page 600, and then at the end when he's written his new book and he gets 7 out of 10 stars, they thought that it picked up around page 6.
I thought it was 7.5 stars.
Oh, so it might be 7.5 stars. There you go.
And I love it. They gave it 7.5 stars. That's good for the Hague Book Club.
Yeah. They were into it. So he's got this entirely skewed perspective of things. Laura is clearly just like, I don't think she has any touch with reality. And because her assistant has gotten to the point where if she wants something to happen, it doesn't matter how intangible or unrealistic it is, he's going to make it happen. And so they come in and completely revamp this old castle that seems to have not been touched since 1985, given that there's still a banner up that says it.
Well, and they revamp it by doing theater magic on it, essentially, which kind of cracks me up. Because I was like, they couldn't have done that. And then when you discovered that they've been locked in this, because the assistant locks Katie and him in this room that's supposed to be their like wedding night room, which was creepy as fuck. At one point, she realizes that something gets thrown and a chunk gets taken out of the stone, and she realizes that it's foam. And so then they bust through this wall, and it's basically stage magic.
Yeah.
I was like, that's brilliant.
Yes. I also love the giant fuck you to James of the entire wall of the ornithologist's wife books.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, you lying son of a bitch. I'm going to give you a full library of just your goddamn books.
Oh, yeah.
I hate you.
And they were signed, which means at some point in time, James signed those books so that they could be sold, but they'd never sold.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
It's a big ol' fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can tell that assistant is just like on his last, I'm gonna fucking lose it. One more thing. Give me one more reason. And honestly, I think that's like one of my disappointing things about this book or this movie is that we never like come back around to any of the assistants.
Mm-mm.
What happens to them after this? We just assume they continue on with Lara.
I will say they must be vastly talented because they really do make shit happen.
They do. Although we don't know how much time they spend working on that castle. I would assume at least a month.
From what he said, it was overnight, which there's no
Yeah.
way that's possible. But that's what the assistant guy said.
Yeah.
I always interpreted that as hyperbole.
That's, yeah.
So I don't know.
Because why would you go someplace that you haven't actually seen to have a wedding and arrive the next day? Like,
Because Lara's privileged as shit and she's used to him making things happen.
Yeah.
it's true.
Also, on the note of the assistant, whose name escapes me. Steve. Of course, you can remember his name is Steve, but you
I can't fucking remember that. I have it on my phone.
Anyway, Steve and his second, I'm pretty sure she's in love with him.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, girl, wrong tree, bark somewhere else.
It's an ongoing thing when she's in the wedding dress for a while where he's like, don't get the dress wet. Don't get the bottom of the dress wet.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she falls in the moat because they've busted through this wall and they're now escaping and he's escaping in a swan boat, he's like, stay here. I'm going to go find Laura.
I don't know why James thought that was going to work.
Yeah, I don't know why
I don't
he was
know
like,
either.
I told you to stay put, so you will. That's
No.
Nah, son.
no.
She would do what she want. And so she's like coming down the thing and he just like paddled away in the boat and then she fell into the water and got stuck. So she was drowning and he pulls her out and saves her. And I love that the first thing he says after like she's coughed up the water and everything is, you got the bottom of the dress wet.
I love that the first thing she says is, don't look at my thighs.
I know. I was like,
like,
girl, they're out.
I feel that though. Don't look at my thighs. And also, she's got pretty normal legs. She's fine.
They're nice legs.
They're
Well,
nice
okay,
legs.
but that wedding dress was all the way up to her hoo-ha at that point.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like the
It's
whole
true.
bottom got ripped off.
That's she had a little Tinkerbell moment going on there.
But that's also why they end up in the hilarity outfits. Well, he does.
Yes.
She's still dressed normally because she's got all her clothes.
They get to take turns being dressed inappropriately.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because he ends up in her dad's clothes. And they are very 70s
Mm-hmm.
orange
Mm-hmm.
fur.
Mm-hmm. Plaid
Plaid.
pants.
And David Tennant can still pull them off.
You know, his butt was working in those pants. And honestly, you got to give the man credit for that because nothing about that outfit was working for anybody.
Yep.
So there's that.
I feel like Katie could have found something else for him.
Could
Aw.
she have? Yes.
Like that was a choice on her part.
Did he deserve it? Yes.
Also, when they're getting changed, so she pulls the like laundry rack. One, I don't know why she just didn't go into a different room, but whatever. I don't know the size of their house. But she pulls down the laundry rack and then she has to have him undo the dress for her. So he undoes the dress, but then he like pushes it down her arms. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
sir, you didn't need to do that. You just needed to undo the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're just in the middle of a process and you just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Mhm. Yeah, they went from enemies to lovers real quick.
mhm.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that they really worked the tension in a scene where almost nothing is happening.
Yeah.
They milked that shit for all it was worth, and I was like, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
And then she teases him because he's got quills on his boxers.
Basically, every time he does something douchey, she's like, did you know that you're a douche?
Yep.
Well, to be fair, the quills on the boxers, those boxers were a gift from Laura
Mm-hmm.
to help his writer's block.
I mean, that's kind of his excuse for everything, though, is like, well, it was Laura's idea.
I think that
She's just kind of running his life right now.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think that's the point of that, right? Is it's not necessarily those two living life together. It's him just being like, okay, it's Laura Tyler. I just do whatever she says and I wear what she says and I go where she says.
I think that Laura sees him as a project and doesn't even realize that that's what she's doing.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah, I don't think she sees that what she's doing at all.
Yes.
She's too nice to see what she's doing and continue it.
So now they've accidentally gotten married and they're have to come up with a solution, or we're on the track to coming up with that solution and finding Laura, which he quickly gets deterred from. And
Just gets lost.
well, he like goes walking out in the grass and like maybe makes it 10 steps before he's just like face planted. I assume caught his foot in like a hedgehog hole or something, and has stormed off because her mom has come in at the exact awkward moment and been like, I got all this money from selling Laura's story to the paparazzi. And he's like, bitch. That was very rude and I'm leaving now. Very upset.
Well, and she didn't have the money. She was telling Katie that she needed to go down to the beach and get it because Laura made her throw it in the ocean.
Laura did.
Yeah, that was a really interesting moment. Like a scene that I still haven't digested properly is Laura taking her mom, who's in a wheelchair because she is terminally ill, and taking her to the cliffs and saying, throw the money in or I'll push you over. I'm like, I don't know. That seemed very out of place in the entire movie for me.
I mean, I don't think that Laura was actually going to push her.
Well,
I
even
don't
if she
think so
kept the money.
either.
I think it was just like, listen, I want you to learn a lesson from this shit. And I think she trusted that this woman was good enough to actually fucking learn it.
And she clearly thought she did because she, at the end of the movie, you find out that she actually pays for Katie and her mother to travel the world in her mother's final days.
Well, it's immediately at that end of the scene after her mother throws the money in that Laura and the mother, whose name I can't remember, are just chit-chatting away.
Well, and then she's like, oh, you're the ornithologist's wife. And she's like, yes.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
That is me. You caught me. Yeah, I just love that entire like dry humor that she's got of just like, yes. Sure.
I love that her whole thing is she needs to travel the world and then die by being thrown into a volcano.
Yes. She says it multiple times.
Yeah.
I need to travel the world and then die by being thrown into a volcano. I mean,
What a way to go.
Yeah.
choices are made. I don't think you'd actually feel it all that much.
Depends how active the volcano is.
Yeah, I think like you'd feel it for a bit.
I don't think for very long.
Also depends on like how big the pool is that you're
Yeah.
falling into. If it's like shallow and you're just like melting a little.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because being burned alive is one of the worst ways to die.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't want that.
So
No, thank you. No, ma'am, Pam.
It would need to be deep enough and hot enough.
or the drop has to be high enough
Yeah.
that you splat.
Kind of. Yeah.
Well, we got off
Wow, we
topic.
went real dark there. Can't say that's ever a thought I've considered, but let's go. There is a really beautiful moment where he got lost. It's hilarity ensues, and he knocks on a house. And as it turns out, both this husband and wife are deaf, but they see his outfit and think that he is Laura's father. Not Laura's father, sorry, Katie's father. And they want him to play the bagpipes. And he realizes that they're both completely deaf. And so he's just kind of blowing randomly into it, and they're dancing and being all happy. And he's just like, oh, that's really cute. But I think the cutest moment is that, so Katie goes and like pulls the thing that it basically moves a flag up and down in their house to let them know that somebody is there. And when they open the door, she immediately starts speaking sign language to them, which makes me think that pretty much everyone on that fucking island probably speaks sign language specifically for this couple.
Yeah, that was the kind of vibe that I got.
Well, and it might not be that they have perfect sign language, but that they have a lot of like really common phrases. Like she brings back the that the weather's mild this time of year, and then immediately goes to global warming. And so I almost wonder if like everyone is putting in the effort, everyone's tried, but I think there's also a little bit of, I mean, the conversation's the same every day. You get good when you practice the same thing over and over again.
But also, how different is that than every time you see somebody, like if you're living in a small town and you like pass by people all the time, you're just like, look at the weather.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. It's a very Midwest thing to say too.
Yes.
I do love that Katie then goes, I'm here for my husband, or my husband.
She said, I heard my husband playing the bagpipes.
Yes.
And they're like, husband? What? Yeah. Yeah.
I will say that was something that I really enjoyed, despite the fact that I found the whole like we accidentally got married thing a bit absurd. I did like that from then on out. They just kept joking about like being husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my favorite.
He throws it in Angus's face.
Yes.
Yes. That whole interaction I find great because he's there being smarting off and just gets yanked down into a fight. He has no idea what's going on. And Angus is like, oh no, bitch. And I just love that his retort is, look at my ring.
He's like, she's my wife. He's like, what? And he just like, look at it, flashes the ring at him.
Yeah, I love that whole sequence. And just Kitty being like, bruh, you're married. You gotta figure your shit out.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I also wondered while watching this movie how hard, because David mostly spoke in a very British accent.
How difficult was it for him to not do Scottish with everybody else? Yeah, I thought the same thing too.
Because David is Scottish. And so I'm like, ooh, how hard was it to not like slip in there?
I'm sure it came through enough takes that they were like, son of a bitch. I do love too just the little like side quest adventure that they have to go on to go meet with this like priest or whatever his title is, and along the way they're just like bantering away, like having their cute little moments, and like all of that whole sequence I enjoy.
My heart does rip out a little bit when she says to him, a chapter's not an entire book, or maybe I'm just a chapter, not the entire book. And I was like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, but it sets up a really cute ending.
It does. But just this particular actress in general, when she has like a really sad moment, she's done it to me in many movies, and it kills me a little every time.
So I'm gonna back us up a little bit.
Yeah.
So when they get to the priest, they have to convince him to like do this unmarrying ceremony, and he's just like, why don't you try this one out for a little while before you jump into another one, right?
Very progressive priest, I will say.
Yes. And I love that he talks a whole bunch of nonsense, right? So he's talking about how like the way that they can get out of it is that they used to have sheep stealing raids on the island, and so as long as you could get people back in front of a priest before the sun went down and get them to renounce their vows, they wouldn't be married anymore, right? So he's like spouting off a whole bunch of nonsense, but then he like lays in that some really like solid advice. And I don't know, I just like that whole sequence. And when they come back out and they're about to go forward with it, and like, yep, we're getting a divorce, this is gonna happen, and they go through with it, and it's kind of sad, and they're like staring off at each other, and you think, okay, all right, this is the end of it. And then they have that moment where she says, don't tell me I'm just one chapter, not the whole book. And you think, okay, I'm sad, but he's going to go marry Lara, and then they're going to break up, and then he's going to come back or something like that. The part that gets to me and always makes me fall in love with this couple every time I watch this movie is he comes back after, like, no, I'm going to go marry Lara. And she says, well, if it doesn't ever work out, and just gives her this sweet little kiss on her forehead. And it's so clear that he's like, yep, that is what I would like to do. But I am not going to be an asshole and cheat on my wife or to be wife. I'm not going to be an asshole and not love the person that I have been telling myself I'm in love with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just like that.
I also like that Laura and him didn't actually get married.
Mm-hmm.
They both made it seem like they did
Mm-hmm.
and went along with it and everything.
For the publicity, which makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't want to, like, I don't know, have a big splashy, but then they didn't get married.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just say we got married and be quiet and
Mhm.
deal with it.
And it's clear that while, yes, she doesn't really know him the way that she thought she did, I think this is also a time for them to actually get to know each other as friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they were like super together or anything, but I think they did spend time together still.
They must have, yeah, because they would need to be seen a little bit in public.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's clearly been probably about a year. Katie and
Mhm.
her mom traveled the world. He wrote an entire book and had it published.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I liked, it's so small, it's so teeny tiny, is when he meets up with Laura and they're about to get married at the very end, and then they like take a pause, is James says to her, I don't really like big cat documentaries,
Mhm.
which was a throwback to a thing that he and Katie Katie was giving him shit on. And Laura's just like, that's okay.
That's fine.
And it's just that moment where I think both of them realized that this hasn't been a honest relationship,
Mhm.
and not honest because they cheated, but just like not who they truly are.
Well, and I think it was a reality of, is this something that we actually are, or is this something that we wanted to be there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's that idea, right, of, did you want to be with me, or did you just want to be with someone, or be in
Mhm.
like this fantasy of a relationship that you built up?
Or do you like me, or do you like the idea of me?
Exactly.
Which a lot of people get married on that basis.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people who jump into that and go, well, on the surface, it's amazing. So it's got to be great once you actually get in the pool. And it's like, no, it's full of piranhas.
Mhm. Or bugs dead at the bottom.
Yuckers. Yeah. Well, and what I love about that is they could have like had him have this whole speech of like, I don't know if this is the right thing for us to do. I don't know if we're making the right choice moving forward, but just like that little casual line, and then you can tell that the rest of the unspoken things are mulling about out in
Yeah.
both of their heads.
Mhm.
Well, there's another part where, so going way back to when Katie and James are on their weird quest of a day.
Mhm.
And Katie asks him, what's Laura actually like? She's probably just like every other girl. And he goes off and says, no, she's beautiful and amazing and blah, blah, blah. And there's this
Kind, lovely.
big, generous, charitable, all this stuff. And it's a little bit of like a catch-22 if you think about it, because if you're like, if a random person came up to me as a married person and said, what's your husband like? I probably would give a similar answer to like, oh, here's all the things he loves and amazing, and he's funny and he makes me laugh, and you know, we have this beautiful relationship with each other. But just the way that David Tennant manages to say words that should feel like you gushing about your significant other, he does it in such a way that makes you feel like, oh, you're talking almost about like an idol, like you're
Mhm.
fantasizing this woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things that this movie does really well is it's constantly making sure you're checking in with both perspectives.
Mhm.
And so with Katie, the way the conversation is being absorbed is she is nothing compared to Laura.
Mhm.
And also she's already feeling shit about herself in general.
Mhm.
And so when he's listing all these things off that she feels like she could never be, it feels like almost an insult the way he's describing
Yeah.
her in this loving appearing way.
Mhm.
But then like as you're listening to it, exactly like you say, from James' perspective, he could also be describing like a piece of art.
Mhm.
Well, I think that one of the like underlying messages, and I don't know if this was intentional or just kind of what I got from it, is you can have a relationship that everybody would say is the most like sought after in being with Laura, because she is so amazing. So your life is going to be so amazing. You're going to have so much privilege, opportunity. You're going to be taken care of. You know, you don't even have to do anything if you don't want to. You could just become a hobbyist and do whatever the fuck you want because your wife is a gazillionaire. But that doesn't, the perfection that other people can see does not equate real happiness. And then to be with somebody who maybe can't offer you all those privileges but can meet you in a different way is so much more valuable.
Well, and it just also goes to show that you don't know a relationship that you're not in. You really don't know the perspective of the relationship if you're not a part of it.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know that this is what they set out as like the goal of their movie, but it very clearly flips the genders of the typical setup of this same plot, right?
Yes.
This like girl who's marrying this really wealthy guy who's nice and handsome and charming and he's everything he should be. He's probably a prince or a CEO or something awesome, maybe a movie star, and falls in love with this small town guy who's just, he's real, right? But the difference and the distinction, I think, with this is it feels like all parties care for one another. Even Laura, who arguably should be pissed at Katie for breaking up her marriage, in theory. That obviously that's not the real reason that they broke up. But instead, she decides to send an obscene amount of money, one can only assume, in order for her to go on this massive amounts of trips with her mother. And ultimately ends up creating Katie's new career as a travel journalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so versus all of those same movies where it's the girl who's fallen in love with this wealthy guy and is now falling for this new small town guy, is that the rich guy is always later on found out to be a bit of an asshole. Or in her behavior, she's a bit of an asshole. And so I just felt like this one was, if it had more feminine gaze on it, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Well, it did have a level of maturity to it.
Yeah.
I think the easiest way to see that is from Laura, because like you said, she easily could have been pissed off. She easily could have been the bad guy at almost any point in time in the story. And instead, she's as kind of lost in the relationship as James is, because she thinks she's marrying somebody else that she's making up in her mind. So we've talked a lot about like how James and Laura are kind of living in this like kind of fantasy where they're not fully in touch with each other. But the big kind of like almost like converse of that is Katie, who seems to be so real or so like, I want to say down to earth. I don't know if that's the right term here. Even though she is lost, she's just almost lost in a very different way where she's trying to like re-find herself. And one of the ways she does that is she writes the guidebook to Heg.
At the behest of the Laird.
Yeah, who thinks that that's going to be a big old selling point, which, I mean, I guess it does become one.
Yes. And, well, I think he is also doing it as a way to, like, he sees that his friend is clearly very bummed about quitting her job, being broken up with, and is like, this will cheer her up. I'll find some use for your creative energy. Yay. And she's like, are you insane? And he's like, a little bit.
What else are we gonna do?
Yeah, there's nothing else to do, Katie. God damn it. Like, they even got her using a typewriter. And I also like that, like, image converse of like her having nothing but a typewriter to use, and so that's what she uses, and James just being pretentious and using a typewriter.
Right.
I also think it was just it was a way for him to be like, you have something to do now. And it did get her creative juices flowing. She ended up writing many guidebooks to different places. It just started with the guidebook to Heg. I will say I do enjoy the narration in the movie of her talking about Heg.
Yes. Yeah.
It is really funny.
I would see, here's the thing. I am not a big fan of reading guidebooks, travel guides, anything like that. But if it was with that level of snark applied to it, I would read so many.
Oh, so much. I do like how it softens a little bit through the the movie because she is starting to see Haig a little bit through James's eyes because he's never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to talk about how beautiful it is. So she does soften a little bit in her descriptions of the natural beauty of Haig and everything. She's very snarky at the beginning of it, talking about the haunted toilet and all of that. And then she kind of softens a little bit to show there is a beauty to it and everything, but it is something that you have to look for because it's a very small island.
Well, they don't have birds and they don't have bees.
Yeah.
So at least that's what the locals are saying. So I also like the moments they take to appreciate the island. Like it almost, I'd have to like look it up and that would be effort, so I won't. But it almost feels like there's a part of it that was just like, we've chosen this isle to like write a little baby love letter to her.
Yeah.
You know?
It felt like, as a small town girly, it felt like just a love letter to any sort of like small town or village or whatever. And that idea of, yes, it can to many people seem like just this tiny little rundown place, but if you actually take a moment to look at it, it's beautiful.
It's got a little something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things, because I've lived all over the place, but one of the things people would ask me is like, well, what's out in South Dakota? And, you know, I was like, well, I mean, there's stuff there. I mean, everybody knows that Mount Rushmore is there and things like that. But I was like, if you're asking like, what is the thing to see there? The sunsets are the best. They just are.
Yep.
They're stunning.
You know, and so every place has that thing that's like, oh yeah, if you go do this, you're going to see the pretty side of where I live.
So then, without knowing it, Katie actually, with her writing and her life and just talking to James, ends up inspiring his new book, which is the ending of the movie. I don't know. Was there a title that we got?
A Simple Song.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Right?
Oh.
And the dedication is like the thing that is supposed to be the clue to Katie that like, just so you know. And it says, to my wife, a single chapter can be a book, or one chapter can be a book, something like that. And so they almost catch each other, but she's just gotten on the boat that's going out and he's gotten off the boat that's coming in. And he the whole time is yelling at her like, why didn't you read the book? And she's like, you know, sore subject, man.
Right.
It was kind of awkward. And he's like, well, you should have read the dedication. She's like,
You dedicated it to Laura.
yeah. And he's like, no, I didn't. That's no.
Well, what did he expect? They told the whole world that James and Laura told the whole world that they did get married. Of course, that's what Katie's gonna think.
That's just putting 2 and 2 together and getting 4, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But-
oh my god!
But then he yells, I only ever married one person. And I'm like, oh.
It's very cute.
Yes.
It's very cute.
And then Angus is driving the boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, and that's growth.
Yep.
That's growth, Angus, and that's what we like to see.
Should I turn around? Yep.
Muriel's doing you good. She's training you up.
Though I have to say, I don't know how I feel about a whole book being one chapter, because his book is one chapter. It's not a very big book, but still, where do I take breaks when I'm reading?
Oh, you and I are very different people. There are times where I dip out in the middle of a sentence. Sometimes a
about
girl's
that.
just gotta pee.
The book goes with you.
Most of the time it does.
Why don't you just get to the end of the sentence and then go pee?
No,
They
there's
don't
times.
take that long.
You just take the book with you. The
Most
best
of the
place
time
to
I
read
do.
the book is on the toilet.
You are entirely wrong. That's a bad choice. That's just like asking for your toilet to accidentally swallow your book when you drop it into it.
What are you doing in the toilet?
Darling.
Listen, what am I supposed to do with the book when I go to get up?
You put it on the counter
Or
the
the-
vanity.
It's
The
not,
bathtub.
Or
it's
the
not
floor.
that close in my bathroom.
Then just put it on the fucking floor.
Well, what? What? And I'm just gonna bend over like some heathen and pick it back up
It's
off the floor?
Yes. Yes. You pick your drawers up, then you pick your book up.
No. This is a
I always set it
dangerous
on the
game.
edge of the tub because it's right there.
Yeah. One of my new favorite things about our new house is the toilet, because our upstairs bathroom, it's not very big, but the toilet is right next to the vanity. And so you can like put one arm up on the vanity while you're pooping and just kind of lean and let it happen. It's a great time.
You guys spend way too much time in the bathroom. My goal is to get in and get out. I'm certainly not going to bring a book and read it while I'm sitting on the toilet.
I
Listen,
have
sometimes-
before been so absorbed in what I'm reading, I just like read it to the bathroom, sit down, do my business, go away from the bath. Well,
Right.
stop and wash my hands.
Well, yeah, obviously.
I'm not a heathen. Well, I am, but not that much one.
Listen, I grew up in a house with a lot of people and a lot of pets, and sometimes the only place that you could get even a modicum of quiet was in the bathroom. So the bathroom is a very sacred place. It's a very enjoyable place. Sometimes you got to keep playing Pokemon because you're in the middle of a battle and you're like, I mean, I could put it down because it's turn-based, but what if my batteries die and then what the fuck's going to happen?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or more importantly, that my fucking brother's going to grab my Game Boy and I wasn't done with that.
See, this is the way my brain works. Is when I get like so consumed with a book, I neglect my needs hardcore. Eating for wimps, peeing for little bitches. And so when I finally do get those things, I just like stuff my face, pee as fast as I can, and then I get back.
I understand the eating, but again, the book goes into the bathroom with me, so it's not a problem.
Anyway,
The book also stays in front of my face while eating.
I can't do that. I can't
I
have
have
any
trouble with
movement with the lines, and I can't hold a book steady and eat at the same time.
Well, see, I propped my Kindle up with its little standy mabob.
I don't have a standing mabob. That's my mistake.
I have one and it doesn't work.
Oh,
I mean, like it stands it up. I just I read very close to my eyeballs.
Anyway, so he does get them to turn the boat around.
yes. Well, Angus turns it around for her.
Yes. And she like gets off the boat and they have their cute like little moment where he explains like, just so you know, you're still probably my wife. It's fine.
I kind of dig you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess technically she's not, but you know, he did hop over to do a sheep raid and might pick up a woman on the way. I thought that was like the perfect way to wrap it up. It was super cute.
And then they had a nice kiss.
Mm-hmm. So I watched this with my little sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we get done with the movie and she's like raging. And I was like, what is going on? And she's like, this shit is so fucking cute. And I was like, I'm sorry?
She had cuteness aggression?
No, she was pissed because they got to have a cute, happy ending. And she was pissed that she didn't have hers. And I was like, bitch, do you know who you're talking to? Like, you're 23 and single. I'm 36 and single. Shut the fuck up. But I get it. You're just like, what? Why? Where do I get mine? There's just not enough David attendants out there.
I mean, he is the perfect man. There will be no David Tennant slander.
I didn't slander at all.
He's fine.
He's deeply in love with his wife. They have like 5 fucking children.
Having children does not mean that you are in love or not in love with your partner. That's
True.
not a good
But
judge.
on all accounts that I have ever seen, him and her are quite happy.
Okay.
They met on the set of Doctor Who.
Okay.
All
I'm
right.
glad this is something that makes you very happy.
It does.
With all that said, I think you know what time it is. It is, in fact, ratings time.
I guess we'll start with Spice.
Nada.
I mean,
Big old goose egg.
No, there's nothing.
Even
There's
the
a
ending
cute
kiss. Even the ending kiss was very chaste.
Yes. Like I said, this is more in the vein of rom-coms of old.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a modern rom-com.
Which honestly is quite refreshing.
It
I
was
feel.
nice that it wasn't all like dick jokes.
Yeah.
I like dick jokes.
I do too.
Yeah, but I
it was
don't
just
need
a
it
nice
in
little
every
refresher.
movie.
Fair.
I like variety.
Oh.
It's the spice of life, don't
But you know what? We all said 0, so gavel gavel.
Gavel, gavel.
A romance.
You know, I'll give the romance like a 4 in this one. I actually really liked their banter back and forth, them kind of getting to know each other, and they just continually made like inside jokes, which I always really appreciate in a relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah, that always
Mhm.
feels more real than the big romantic gestures.
Yes. And there were other cute romances in the show.
I
Like-
loved the deaf couple.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I will agree with a 4.
I'm going to have to bring us down to, I'm going to give it a 3. I I thought it was cute. I just didn't get any flutters. So
wow.
yeah.
I'm sorry for you.
What do you
happens.
do? So no gavel gavel.
No gavel gavel.
What's your overall?
Give it like a 3.5. I like this movie. It's cute.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the most exciting movie in the world, but sometimes I think it did what it went out to be.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I like hover between a 3.5 and a 4 because I do really enjoy this movie, but it almost like suffers from like being underproduced.
Yeah.
And like it really just needed a little bit more focus at times. And when I first watched it, I was able to just like enjoy it, but like watching it again with a more critical eye of like, okay, I need to look at this and think about like what I have to say about it. I was sort of like, so I'm going to go with a 3.5.
Well, I'm going to go with a 2. And I think the big thing that killed it for me is by the time we get to James and Katie being together, which arguably does pick up the movie picks up at that point. But by the time we got there, I was so bored with all of the buildup that I was just kind of like, meh.
Sure.
Fair enough.
But also, apparently, I don't know, maybe I wasn't in the mood for it. So maybe don't listen to me.
Here's the thing.
You got to be in the mood for a rom-com.
Yes. Well, in the same way that like people will tell me, oh, you've got to watch the show. You've got to read this book. You've got to do this thing. I'll be like, I hear you. People have been telling me forever since it came out. You got to watch everything everywhere all at once. And I'm like, I couldn't agree more. But if I'm in the wrong mood, I'm not going to like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm sure I'll get on it eventually. I will be behind the times. I'm just going to be honest. But I don't want to not like that movie just because of the mood I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just psyched myself up for a lot more comedy. And the comedy in this was much more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just my own fault.
Well, and in general, British humor has a greater level of subtlety to it.
Sure.
Indeed.
Because often the movies that they're creating, they're not trying to make blockbusters.
Yeah.
Well, and Wiggles and I watch a lot of British movies and
That's
TV
true.
shows.
That's
So
true.
we are a little more used to it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
there's that.
Yeah.
Recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is the correlation between the, getting married and then kind of finding yourself already married. They have to get divorced and everything. There is a cuteness factor, but not quite to this degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I also appreciate because they also don't make Patrick Dempsey's character the villain
Mm-hmm.
in that either.
His mom, however.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
she's a raging bitch,
bitch.
but they don't make Patrick the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what I missed from this movie, is that there wasn't somebody to put like my ire towards.
Maybe.
You know?
I think what it most reminds me of, in terms of like a lack of villain, is almost like Much Ado About Nothing, where like the big bad is Don John, right? But like all he did was be like, hey, you should pretend to fuck that girl and say she's somebody else, and like it's a shitty thing to do, because he knew the consequences of the time. But really, like he didn't do much. Like nobody really did anything in this, unless you get the title right. Much Ado
Yeah.
About Nothing. And so I think it's just one of those circular stories where like things just happened. We have our thing, and we come back to another happy start.
Well, my recommendations would be Leap Year, the movie with Amy Adams that came
Mhm.
out almost 15 years ago now. I will say I haven't watched it in a long time, but that was the vibe that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would recommend The Reason I Married Him by Megan Quinn, because that one is also a semi-big city guy, comes to a small town. He's also a writer, and he convinces his sister-in-law, his late brother's sister-in-law, so I don't really know what your relation to that person is then, to have a fake relationship with him for reasons so they can get things out of it. But it is much more subtle. It's like a 550-page book. So like they spend a lot of time in the cute and the getting to know each other and the like back and forth and banter. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give a sort of a sadder recommendation, but I'm also going to give a happier one, so I'll end with that one.
Okay.
So my sadder recommendation, this one is mostly for the like small town European vibes, which is a admittedly small section of this story.
Is it P.S. I Love You?
It sure is.
That's the one I was thinking of too.
It gave that vibe, right? Yeah.
But I was like, that's too sad.
It is so sad. It's one of my cry movies, but it is good. And my God, do I fall in love with that man every time. Every time. Anyway.
I don't think as a like married person, as somebody who's been married for 12 years, that I could even watch that movie anymore. Like,
That's
it would
fair.
just be devastating.
My other recommendation is Enchanted. And you might be like, Aaron, why? What the fuck? And I don't know. I don't have like a good connection. Like, yes, there is like people who are in a relationship before meeting the person they end up in a relationship with. That aspect does connect. But otherwise, I just like was getting that vibe. So enjoy. That's a recommendation just based on vibes.
I don't get it, but I'm going to go with you on
Yep.
it.
Vibes.
All right, everyone. That's the end of the episode. If you like this, please find us out there on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets. And you can find us primarily on TikTok and Instagram, but you can pretty much find us wherever. And then go to wrongdustjackets.com, our website, so you can see a list of episodes that we've previously done, upcoming episodes, our blog post, cool stuff there. Also, it would make my day. It would make my whole week, maybe even my whole month, if you went ahead and left a comment, a like, 5 stars, whatever is available to you on your podcast listening app. And that's all I've got. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.